order of business is public comment. We don't seem to have any of that. So let's go to approval of the September meeting minutes. Any questions or corrections?
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 2017 meeting schedule was handed out, so everybody knows about that. And we'll assume that we're going to probably make changes along the way, but right now we should be okay. So let's move on to. Do we need a motion? Do you need a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Fine. All right. Let's ask for a motion to approve the schedule.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good. All right, so let's go to the Direct Connect agreements.
Okay, good morning. And maybe before I start Direct Connect, Debbie, our Chief Financial Officer, will give a little announcement.
Oh,
Well, I set up the PowerPoint.
is it positive?
Yes.
You're smiling, that's
why I'm
good.
smiling. No, this is was our third year of submitting for the GFOA Award of Excellence for our CAFR, and we received it Friday afternoon, I guess I'd say. So Michael and his team, the accounting team, everybody has input into making this what it is, so we're very proud of our accomplishment.
Excellent. Congratulations. I'm sitting on one of those also, and that's a really good achievement for all the folks in the accounting area. So thank you very much for a great job.
Yes, and that's awesome to Mike and Debbie and everybody
Yes.
for getting that done. Okay, I'm happy to be here making this presentation about this program this morning. As you know, this is an action item for your committee to recommend to the PSTA board to approve contracts related to our Direct Connect program that I'll walk through. This is the second time that this came before you. A month ago, there was Chris Cochran, our great planner, who has done a great job with this program. But today, he is actually at a mobility conference in Chicago giving a presentation about our innovative programs. So, you get me. Last month, we presented to you a expansion of our program, and there was a lot of really great questions at the committee level. So we took it to the PSTA board as an info item. We decided to scale back the program substantially and turn it into a second 6-month pilot program. And I'm just going to walk through the details of that. Before I do that, however, I thought it would be helpful to talk just a little bit about all the different programs. PSTA is really getting a lot of positive national press, and like I said, Chris has become sort of like a superstar rock star at at all these different conferences about where transit is going and partnering with these shared ride things, because we were the first place in the country to do that. But a lot of folks, even at PSTA, don't exactly know exactly what we're doing. I think this committee probably had the most robust discussion about it a month ago, and then last night at our track committee with our riders group, they had a really good discussion about it. And you have this in front of you on a piece of paper, so you can take it home and study it and memorize it too. PSTA has 3 different programs, 3 different innovative programs with private sector mobility partners. Number 1 is our program for first mile, last mile connections, and that is called Direct Connect. And that is the program that is before you as an action item to recommend today. In red on this chart, it won't show up on a black and white, but on red are the items related to our second pilot that are on the agenda today. This is a program that's open to anyone. At least for this first 6 months, it was open to anyone in Pinellas Park. We are proposing to have a second pilot where it would be open to anyone county-wide, but in a limited way that they can connect to 7, possibly 8 stops. The pilot in Pinellas Park was very successful in that it was the first time that Uber has partnered with any transit system in the United States. And we sort of broke through that barrier for the first time, also partnering with cabs. It, however, has been very small. It's really been connecting to one location, the Pinellas Park Transit Center, and the ridership, or the average ridership, has been averaging about 3 per day. 3 people connecting to the bus system in Pinellas Park. The second program that we launched just on August 1st, funded by the state, is called our TD Late Shift Program. That's separate from the Direct Connect completely, but it is a service, and it's only eligible for low-income individuals who qualify for the Transportation Disadvantage Discounted Bus Pass. It's also available throughout all of Pinellas County, and we have trips coming from all parts of Pinellas County. It's been a huge hit. Again, it runs only at night, in that it's designed to have people who take the bus, but then the bus ends, have a way back home, and that's what it's being used for. It is averaging about 50 a night, 50 rides a night. People are taking Uber or taxi back home, largely. What's different about this compared to Direct Connect is about 98% Uber rides and very few cab rides, and this Direct Connect is about the opposite. About 3/4 of them are actually taxi cab riders and not Uber riders. We think there's a number of reasons for that. One, it's free to anyone. There's no incentive to take Uber or taxi or either one. Of course, you don't need a smartphone to get a taxi cab. And so most of the low-income folks are saying they don't have a smartphone. You don't need a credit card for either of the programs or money because it's free. The state grant is paying for it. But so far, it's really moved. The riders are choosing the cab, although we are working with Uber actually to do some more marketing and education about how to use Uber, and then we're starting to see a little bit of a shift.
Just a quick question. Are we tracking where these riders are going to, that we could use an additional bus route or something like that instead when this grant runs out, or are they all going in different directions, and so it wouldn't really be efficient to use a bus?
We are tracking that, and that's a good point. We are seeing we're actually seeing the 2 largest destinations, I guess, or maybe I think one's maybe an origin, the second one's a destination. Is Tech Data and the Goodwill facility over here off of Gandy at the racetrack, by the racetrack. That is a location for work release women who live there, and then they are going back home after call center jobs. They ride the bus, and then they are taking cabs or Uber back to their home, and then I think the other one is Tech Data is also a call center kind of thing. But it's a good point. If it seems to be clustered in that kind of way, then we want to look at a bus route. The third program, sorry.
Yeah, well, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't see your hand.
2 things. On the second one there, where we're talking about, we have $300,000. That was for a year-long pilot.
Yeah.
And we've gone through 3 months. And how much of that $300,000, because of the number of trips that we've taken, have we used? How much have we used?
Well, again, we started it on August 1st, so we've gone through 2 months.
Oh.
And we can total the number. I don't know the complete dollar amount, but we are carefully tracking it, and we are running right on pace to spend about $300,000 through the end of that year. If we stay on the 50 rides a day kind of average. We are making a presentation to the statewide Commission for Transportation Disadvantage coming up in the next couple of weeks, I know. And they have indicated a willingness to fund us for a second year of this program if it's successful, and we're going to present to them that it has been very successful and is accomplishing their mission of getting low-income people better access to jobs. So I'm pretty optimistic that we would be able to get a second year's worth of funding for this, but we are carefully monitoring because it's doing so well that it's about getting to the $300,000 number.
And that was my second question, is really, I mean, from what I understand, putting pilots in place, you go for a period of time, and throughout that process, you're monitoring it, you're reviewing not only the numbers, but also the qualitative aspects of it to make sure that it's tracking as you had hoped.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that period, as you move towards the end of that period, you start looking at whether to extend it or make it permanent or whatever.
Exactly.
And so, again, just as we look at this program, if it gets put in place, I would like to do a little better job of monitoring and talking about it than we did in the first one. I feel like the first one, we really haven't even had a chance to unwrap it a little bit, to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of that first that first pilot. And yet we're jumping into a much broader, expanded pilot too, because we just think it will be a success. And so I just want to make sure that as we go along, maybe a little bit more discussion about the pilots, so that to staff's concern, that we put pilots in place, or how they are versus permanent programs, and taking them away and not taking them away. I think we need to have that ongoing discussion throughout the process. But just a comment.
Good
Thank
point.
you. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick question, Brad. Thanks. Under next steps, it says shifts ride to Uber. Is there a cost advantage with Uber, or is it a flexibility advantage with Uber? What's the?
There's a substantial cost savings to Uber. It's about half price to half the price of a cab to go to Uber. If we can work with these individuals, and some folks are taking it, 5 days a week. Some folks are taking a cab ride 5 days a week because they're work trips. And if we can, number one, shift them from cab to Uber, maybe even getting them or their employer a smartphone to hail the Uber, we can save half the money. And then second, maybe, and we're also working with Tech Data and Goodwill to pool their folks. Rather than taking 5 different Ubers back to Goodwill, why don't they all take maybe 2? And both those users of the system are doing that. Are working with us to transition their folks to Uber and to try to coordinate rides so they're carpooling basically.
Anything we do to extend that $300,000, more rides we can provide.
Yeah, and we're telling them that. Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just going back to your comment about the to and the from, are most of the routes from Tech Data to the Goodwill facility?
I want to confirm, is it Tech Data or is it Jabil? No, but it's from AGR to one of those places. Was it AGR? Okay, it's not Tech Data. It is AGR, which is a major call center over here by Gandy also. We'll have to verify that
So,
with Chris.
but are they from is the work locations AGR and Goodwill, or is the work,
Goodwill is a residence.
it's a residence?
Goodwill is a origin. This major call center called AGR is a destination, is a workplace.
Okay.
They're a major call center. They're off of, I think, 16th, sort of Gandy, right there where all that construction is.
They were the ones that moved and we didn't have bus service
Yes,
to them.
they used to be on Ulmerton, and then they moved to that location.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Is this an opportunity of actually working with a individual business to understand their clients'
Right.
needs and then seeing how we can be most effective?
Yes.
agree.
We've talked about trying to get closer to businesses and understanding that maybe this is the places. Thank you.
Yes, good.
In February, when we extend the bus service later at night, we plan to adjust this program as well to start later at night. Again, this service really only runs when there's no bus service. The third program, which has not started yet, but is our third separate program partnering with these private sector providers. We don't have a marketing name for it, so it was called the FTA, Federal Transit Administration Sandbox Grant Program. So the Sandbox program, that will be for people with disabilities. And that was the program that Congressman Jolly was just here a week ago and announced that we received the $500,000 federal grant that we had applied for. That is also a very innovative program in that we will be the first transit system to partner with the shared mobility kind of companies for people with disabilities. And we have partnered with Lyft on that program, maybe Uber in the future, but to start Lyft, because Lyft has agreed to have contract with or hire accessible vehicles into their fleet that you can access through their app. So this will allow people with disabilities, which are our DART customers, to get a ride on a real-time basis rather than making a reservation like they do now for Care Ride the day before. It's going to start probably sometime next year. To Commissioner Egger's point, FTA also wants a lot of monitoring and analysis of these innovative programs. That's why they called it like a sandbox that you could play around and do different things. And so we have we plan to contract with Qatar over at University of South Florida, and they're going to actually do the data analysis and develop a full report on the program. The definition of FTA's time period for their grant or pilot is 2 years, so it's a two-year analysis piece for that program.
Just a quick question. Can you review the specific type of people with disabilities that are going to use a Lyft program rather than a paratransit type program?
Yes. Again, our definition that PSTA uses for disabled riders essentially is a disability that prevents you from using the fixed route bus. Our DART paratransit program at PSTA is required under the ADA. Every transit system in the United States has a similar kind of program. We choose to contract that out 100% to Care Ride now, and it is. You have to go through a certification process where you fill out an application, you get a doctor to certify that you are unable to ride the fixed route bus service because of your disability, and so then you require a paratransit trip. We think that by using these other companies, that will actually be a cost savings compared to the contract rates we have with Care Ride. Plus, it will give folks in certain circumstances an ability to get a immediate ride, or hail a ride right away, like you do for a cab or Uber or Lyft, rather than call a day in advance, like Care Ride normally works.
Right, but I guess my question is, Lyft is typically people driving a regular passenger vehicle, so only certain people who have a disability of some kind would be able to ride in a passenger vehicle.
Correct.
Not be universally available, because some people still have to have a full paratransit type carrier.
Historically, for a PSTA, about 50% of our DART paratransit rides have been in cars, sedans, cognitive disabilities, limited walking, but basically anyone besides that needs the use of a wheelchair can go in a car, and it's been about 50-50 for a very long time in our DART program. So I think there's an opportunity for regular cars, and then, like I said, they are contracting with folks that have accessible vehicles as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Barkley. That was the question I had too, was just getting a little bit more information about the company that we're partnering with that will do the retrofits for the cars for Lyft, and just a little bit more about what that looks like. And then I think you just said that that would enable us to offer service to about 50% of our riders that can utilize it, but maybe not wheelchair, people who are in wheelchairs.
Well, that's a good question. We are part of the grant, and they were in attendance at the announcement. Is this company called Custom Mobility, which is in Pinellas Park off of 118th here. They construct, or they take vans and they retrofit them with wheelchair lifts. They have agreed to be part of our grant, but really contract with Lyft.
Okay.
And they already have a network of willing drivers to drive their vehicles around, picking up people, and then Lyft will essentially provide the insurance, the app capability, and then they will fall under Lyft.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a contract with Care Ride to handle all of our transportation. So is there anything, partnering with Lyft on this, kind of take some of that business away, I guess? So is there anything in the contract that prevents us from moving forward with this, or?
There's nothing in the Care Ride contract that prevents us from moving forward with this. Care Ride is technically a partner also in this, to the extent that they can provide same-day trips.
Okay.
We do expect, I mean, that is actually sort of the goal of the whole project, is to reduce costs or be more efficient by providing using this real-time technology, and that it would shift some, we don't think all, or a large majority of their business or anything, but it would shift some trips off of our Care Ride contract and onto these other same-day providers, and then that will actually save PSTA money.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it could theoretically as well, with the more flexible, easier service to use, it could actually increase ridership.
It could. It could. More and more people could realize that there's more capabilities. I think there was a TV article about the announcement on Bay News 9, and our track rider, Elizabeth, was on there and talking about what a great thing this would be for her because she missed her bus connection or Care Ride connection, and then, oh my gosh, I could just call and still go to church. I think she was going to or something.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Please.
Originally, we were talking about on the Direct Connect program of over $100,000 for the year, and I'm noticing that the recommendation is to just do it for 6 months. Is that
Yes, it's a pilot.
right? So we're just doing the $100,000 for the 6-month period is what we have
Right.
put aside.
So that was sort of a summary of all the programs that are going on at PSTA. The recommendation before you today has been scaled back substantially in the last month since we last presented this to you, to be a second 6-month pilot program. A 6-month pilot program expanding the single Pinellas Park connecting point to 7, maybe 8 connecting points across the county, and more focused, increased marketing of the program. We have expanded the number of contractors. The original idea by this first mile, last mile program was to open it up to any company that would sign this contract, meaning insurance, etc. The same contract, anyone could sign up to provide trips, especially if they had an app. So now we have Uber, Lyft, Care Ride, United Taxi. Uber, Care Ride, and United Taxi have been there all along, but now we have this other company called Wheelchair Transport, was agreed to the agreement, and Lyft has too. Based on the comments, the really good comments that we received at the Finance Committee last month and then some at the board meeting, Chris and I have had some really good meetings. I heard last night that Chris had another hour-long meeting with folks at Uber to add some sort of behind-the-scenes technical changes to the way the program has worked in Pinellas Park to, I wouldn't say restrict it, but I would say ensure that it meets the goals of this program, to provide a first-mile, last-mile connection to the bus system. And I'm going to show an example of how we think that will work. But there was some discussion about, well, oh my gosh, what if everyone just gets discounted Uber rides all over the county, and or what if they're never taking the bus? We took those very seriously, and we took them to Uber and had a very serious conversation with them about how we really want this program to be structured so that it is a first mile, last mile, and not something else. And they have wholeheartedly agreed. We are their poster child for this, and they at least are saying, and they are starting to show us some action, that they are actually going to be able to adjust their app in a way that I think tightens the program to make sure that it meets the objectives. So again, this is the proposed 7 connecting points. I'm going to stop saying stars because, and I want to say connecting points to emphasize that this is not a system to get discounted Uber rides to the destination that you want to go to. This is a program to go to connecting points to the bus system to get you to where you want to go to. I have an example to try to emphasize this. Let's say, let's talk about Eastlake, where there is no service. We don't have any transit service in Eastlake, and let's say there's a fine customer who lives in Eastlake and needs to go to work somewhere, let's say Carillon or somewhere south. And so they need to take our US 19 bus that goes up and down US 19 down to their destination. Under this program, they can take an Uber ride to the Tarpon Springs connecting point, right there at the Publix on US 19, where our bus goes. That cost for that Uber ride, it wouldn't actually float across the water, it would go up and over, probably in a car, is $6, and PSTA would provide a $5 subsidy to that, making the trip cost $1. They would get out of the Uber car, and they would take the bus to their destination and pay another $2.25 to PSTA. So again, the goal is to get more riders on the bus, open up areas of the county that are not convenient to the bus system, and have them access the bus system. The goal is not to give free Uber rides or discounted Uber rides to the destinations. We had some discussion about whether or not we should have a connecting point in downtown Clearwater, and we've taken that off because that's a potential destination. Now, of course, Publix is a potential destination. Uber has agreed to put a time limitation. So there will be a several-hour time limitation on the ability to take an Uber to and from a single connecting point. So you'd either have to wait around for like 4 or 5 hours to be able to just take Uber to the Publix and back. It's really designed to catch the bus there. And that's where these different connecting points have been identified. So, again, the recommendation today in your packet is for the 5 contracts. The total amount, as stated in the contract, is the total for all 5 contracts cannot exceed $100,000. We are setting a goal this time. We had no goal for the first program. We just hoped we could get a deal done. We're setting a goal of trying to expand the ridership to 50 a day from its current 3 a day, but we're expanding it from 1 to 7. even if we meet our goal of 50 trips a day, that amounts over the 6-month pilot to be $45,000. So there is some cushion, I think, in the budget and in the contracts, even if this pilot program does become successful. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or.
Any questions? Okay, Commissioners?
Yeah, I would just really like to make, part of any recommendation to the board that we get a monthly report on progress, whether it's marketing, because that'll be the first month or two, probably throughout, and also how each of the connector sites are doing along the way. So that as we proceed through those next 6 or 7 months, that we get a feel for it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would love to have that as a part of the motion that we make. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Dayton?
Is the $100,000 a grant, or is that from PSTA?
The $100,000 is in the PSTA budget. It's for PSTA.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Although if you know of any grants we could get for this.
Keep searching, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to move this?
I would move approval, but include in the motion the monthly report
Right.
as suggested by Commissioner.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is information on our Central Avenue BRT. Heather? Several of us were at the initial meeting on this over at St. Pete Beach.
Yeah, let me.
And, we got a write-up in the newspaper also, if you noticed.
I saw. I want to thank a number of the members of the Finance Committee who are here. Commissioner Chair Barkley, Commissioner Dayton, and Commissioner Johnson, and our Chair Rice were all at the fun-loving St. Pete Beach City Commission meeting a week ago. We've been reflective about that meeting. Even if there was maybe a crack in the door or a sliver or something.
Good time.
And Heather's going to kind of go through some scenarios that we are gathering the data for. As I think a number of folks have said on the PSTA board, we want to make sure we have a good data-driven decision. And but obviously, we need to sort of come up with some alternative plans based on the comments we received at St. Pete Beach. Take it away.
Great.
Thank you, Brad. All right, so just as a reminder, the proposed alignment that's coming out of the technical analysis and the public outreach done so far is from downtown St. Petersburg through South Pasadena to St. Pete Beach. This generates the most ridership because it serves the most number of hotel rooms, the greatest population density, and the greatest employment density. So having just presented to St. Pete Beach, as Brad said, we want to proceed with a data-driven approach with the goals of keeping this project viable and then also working with St. Pete Beach. It's really important that we have a successful project, and so we are recommending that the board not take action in October, and then in the meantime that we work on different routing options and potentially different costing options so that we can lower the cost to St. Pete Beach and stay on track. We also want to focus some on the eastern alignment because we know we have some decisions to make in downtown St. Petersburg. So we will continue working toward that, and then that will allow us to begin some of the environmental analysis. So I have a whole list of potential routing options that back in planning we're working on getting some data for, but we've listed here the three, what we believe to be the three most viable options. So the first one is that we could continue to run the CAT to St. Pete Beach, and right now it goes all the way down here past the Don Cesar to Paso Grill, and then that we could take the BRT just to 75th and Gulf, so people could still transfer into the CAT. Now this would not serve the hotels directly with the BRT, but would have the benefit of not costing St. Pete Beach more, while still allowing people to transfer to the CAT and make their way down St. Pete Beach. The second would be to take the CAT to 75th and Gulf and the BRT all the way down to the Don Cesar. This would not provide local service through St. Pete Beach, but would take the BRT all the way down and then have the benefit of we could take the costs that the St. Pete Beach is currently paying for the trolley and apply those towards BRT. So then it would only cost them about $200,000 more for the BRT. And then the third would be to take the CAT to Treasure Island to the St. Petersburg Municipal Beach, and then the BRT down to Don Cesar. Now, like the last option, this would not provide that local service, but would again have the benefit of allowing St. Pete Beach to apply the trolley dollars to the BRT instead of the trolley. So we also have come up with a fourth option, maybe thinking a little bit out of the box to consider some policy decisions related to the cost. So Brad's going to walk through those.
Okay. So as Heather's described, we've come up with a number of different routing options, all designed to still serve and have the BRT go either close to or entirely to St. Pete Beach. We are going to look at the cost and ridership impacts of Madeira Beach and Treasure Island as well, but what we're starting out with is what are ways in which we can still hit the highest ridership potential and the most development potential in St. Pete Beach while still being reflective of St. Pete Beach's inability to provide the funding that we've put together. So as Heather's described, again, there are a number of routing different scenarios we're looking at to lower the cost of St. Pete Beach. And just thinking outside the box a bit, we have this other alternative. It's more of a policy consideration that I recognize might take the full 6 months that we're going to talk about this for some PSTA board members to get their heads around. But just a new way of thinking about our relationship with St. Pete Beach. If you think about the PSTA, the full PSTA system we have today, and I think all of us and myself, we live in cities that are members of PSTA, and we receive bus service in our cities that is paid for in total by the full network is paid for by a $70 million annual PSTA budget. And the property tax that we pay to PSTA for that bus service that we all enjoy is about actually a little bit more than $35 million a year. About half, or I think it's closer to 60%. We pay only 60 cents on the dollar for the bus service that we all get. That's because the rest of the PSTA budget is offset by fares the passengers pay, by state grants, by federal grants, and advertising revenue. Well, should we consider St. Pete Beach in the same way? So far, as you know, we have presented two different numbers to St. Pete Beach. We presented them, and I know there are board members on PSTA that feel strongly about those two numbers. There's a $1.8 million, which has nothing to do with the cost of the BRT. It has to do with how much revenue their property tax, their 0.75 ad valorem would generate in their city like they were a member. It's 1.8. The other number is $700,000 a year, which is the full cost of the BRT in their city. But this is an option perhaps to look at that $700,000 number in a different way. Treat them like the other cities in PSTA, and charge them only 60% of that $700,000, so more like $400,000. And then on the capital piece, treat them also like PSTA. Most of the capital funds that PSTA that we all use to buy buses and shelters and things like that, we don't pay any of our property tax for that because, at least historically, it's been paid for by the federal government. And as you know, in our discussions of buses, we're going to start paying some of our own money for vehicles. So about a third of our capital program moving out in the future is going to be paid for by us. Maybe St. Pete Beach should be the same way, rather than making them pay 100% when we don't. Maybe it's a different option. I can see some frowns, so I know that there's some folks on the PSTA board that maybe aren't there yet on this. I don't even know if St. Pete Beach would be, the commission would be there yet, but it's just another way of looking at it. Again, we're just trying to look at every possible way that if the data shows that we want to have a service to St. Pete Beach, because that is where the development is, what are different ways we can look at this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are they paying now, St. Pete Beach, for the trolley service?
They're paying right around $500,000 a year for the
That's
trolley.
not our fully allocated cost, right? That's not. That
It's
doesn't
not.
cover all. Yeah, I'm not crazy about this.
Okay.
My concern, let me just express my concern, I have actually two. The first one is, we're making a offer of a very valuable service that to a city that's not a member of the PSTA system, and we could start a slippery slope situation where other cities would all of a sudden say, hey, we don't want to be in the system either, and we lose a lot of revenue. Second problem is when we went to St. Pete Beach, those of you who weren't there, I brought the mayor of South Pasadena, which is one of the cities I represent, and that bus is going to run through South Pasadena and would be very beneficial to them. St. Pete Beach just flat out said, we don't want this, and they were pretty abrupt about it. So
They don't want to pay for it.
I don't know if they want to pay for it or not. They just simply,
They want it.
the people lined
They
up.
want it.
They want it. They just don't want it.
I
But they don't want to pay.
I didn't get that impression. I got the impression they just didn't want it. They wanted to use the existing system. But in any case, I'm just reluctant to give away the store here when we've got other cities that are similarly situated that aren't. One of them is my city, Kenneth City. That's another city I represent. I'm just reluctant to give away a very valuable service to a city that's not a member, and frankly indicated to my mind that they weren't particularly interested in the system. And that's an issue. I don't know that we want to do that. I grant you that it's the most beneficial for us, but they don't perceive it as being beneficial to them.
Again, the direction that I feel I have received from the PSTA board is to ensure that the member cities are not subsidizing the bus service or the BRT service in St. Pete Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And even under this new way of looking at the costs, that would be the case. The citizens of St. Pete Beach, they actually, Chair Rice inspired me on this. She was the one who came up with this. They pay the fares, or their tourists pay the fares, and they pay state grants and federal grants just like we all do. The only thing that they don't pay that we pay is the property tax. So there would not be a subsidy under this alternative policy to St. Pete Beach. Now, I mean, your points are well taken, Mr. Chair, about whether they wanted it at any price or not. I don't know, but
One of the choices on this that we could turn the BRT around at the where the dinner boats come in South Pasadena, or at some other spot, so that they could still obtain access to the CAT, but we wouldn't actually enter St. Pete Beach with the BRT.
Right. Well, one option, yes, would be to have the BRT just come to 75th and Gulf, and then have the CAT continue like it does today, which it goes down to Paso Royal. So it goes beyond the Don Cesar.
Commissioner Johnson?
going that a little farther though, well, why not turn it around in South Pasadena? So it doesn't
Right.
go into St. Pete Beach.
That could be an option, and that people, you're right, could still connect in with the CAT. We were just trying to get to that one point, just to provide the most connectivity as possible.
I'm just in the area of the 60%. I'm a little bit reluctant to do that because, for instance, the East Lake folks, they pay a lot of taxes to PSTA, but they get very little value out of it. So the folks in trying to construct something that gives St. Pete Beach another special benefit, I think they're already getting a special benefit in that we're charging them an hourly service, not the total ad valorem property. And just and I don't, some of you may have heard this at the executive committee, but just some numbers. Clearwater Beach, just Island Estates, Sand Key, North and South Beach have an ad valorem value that's $3.6 billion. St. Pete Beach has an ad valorem value of $2.5 billion. So Clearwater Beach at 7.75 contributes 2.6 million to PSTA. The St. Pete Beach, with this, currently they're they pay $500,000 versus the 1.9 that they would pay. And the other thing is that they only have set their millage rate at 3.15, which is quite a bit lower than most of the other full-service cities. They also have a pension shortfall down there that they have chosen to not address. Probably some of that is from sins of the fathers instead of the current council. But I'm kind of looking at some of these other aspects and saying that St. Pete Beach, in effect, has made choices over time. When I was down there, I heard at least three of the council members saying they just didn't think they wanted to invest more money than they're investing now. And it sounded like they were concerned about their financial ability of their city to deal with some sewer problems as well as their pension problems. The other two were kind of saying, well, let's think about another option. So I mean, my recommendation would be to look at options that do not include St. Pete Beach, which might include Pasadena. The other option would be just to go to Tyrone on the end of the BRT route. Tyrone has great bus connections. From what I heard Bob Minning, the mayor of Treasure Island, say at the mayor's luncheon, I didn't get the impression that he would be willing to increase the amount of money, even if it just went to Treasure Island at this point in time. So those are some observations just from my standpoint.
Yes.
Heather, could we go back to the slide of the cost reduction routing options? What was the other one? Sorry, the map. Can you just walk through those again a little bit with me? Like I'm not understanding how like option 3 is a money saver.
Well, it's just 2 and 3 basically take the BRT costs out of St. Pete Beach. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. They take the trolley costs out of St. Pete Beach. So St. Pete Beach could apply the $500,000 they're paying today toward the BRT, and then would only need to pay a couple $100,000 more dollars.
It's not a
And-
money
and
saver,
then-
it's a swap
Yeah.
of
Oh, okay.
their money. They would buy the BRT instead of the trolley.
But don't, aren't they
And
paying for
the BRT would extend to the Don Cesar?
Yeah.
Yes, because we need to provide the service on the rest of the beach that would no longer be covered by the CAT.
So they would no
Okay.
longer have a trolley in St. Pete Beach, the CAT. So Paso Grill would no longer have any service. And then many of the hotels would not, unless they were, the BRT is only going to have 2 or 3 stops along the beach. It would not have as many stops as the trolley. So there's not a great option for this, but they could take the $500,000 they would no longer need to spend out of their own city budget for the trolley
Mhm.
and apply it to the bus rapid transit.
Okay.
Question,
And-
sorry.
I'm sorry, just follow.
Yeah.
And the caveat there is we just really don't know what the response to these proposals would be yet.
Right.
Right, so we are developing some comparisons between these proposals and others that we have, and in terms of ridership, net impacts to ridership, net impacts to operating costs, and some of the things that we can share with you. We're just trying to do this in a very thoughtful way and make sure we have the data right before we share it.
Question,
I believe that somebody on the St. Pete Beach Commission, he's either a member now or he's a former member, and he owns the Hurricane, which is all the way down at the bottom. So when you propose this and you just run it down to the Don Cesar, you're gonna get a lot of objection to not running it all the way down. I mean, there's some people down there now who say we don't want it there, but the guy who owns the Hurricane would be happy to have it. And I don't know if the rest of the people on the commission would fight him on that.
He didn't seem to
He was
vocalize
he was
joy
on-
for it.
Yeah. There's an older guy that we've talked there, he's come out to us once or twice, he
Yeah.
said, I own the Hurricane. And he used to be on the board. And I think he's got a lot of influence there still. So that there, people are fighting about whether they want it there, but I'm sure that he would be a big voice.
Yeah, I guess the question there is, we do have about 300 riders there, and that's ons and offs on an average day. And then the only other ridership in Paso Grill is really right up here, where there's some other restaurants. But we did hear a lot from the commission about how the residents don't want it there. So, I don't know which way it would go.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the residents could really work against the owner of the Paso Grill. But that's something that we have to keep in mind when we talk about taking that off.
The question I had was, where does the Suncoast Trolley terminate now?
75th and Gulf.
Okay, so it doesn't really go into St. Pete. We don't charge St. Pete Beach for the Suncoast Trolley segment very much. It's mostly just for the Central Avenue trolley that goes through their community.
Right, I mean, technically we do charge them a little bit for the piece up Blind Pass Road there. I can't remember where the bridge is, I guess right at the top there. We do charge them a little bit in the formula for the Suncoast Beach trolley, but you're right, the vast majority of their costs are DART and the Central Avenue trolley.
And that's because we used to have the Suncoast Trolley go all the way down to Paso Grill, but now that segment is covered by the CAT. And the frequency of the CAT versus the frequency of the BRT, is there a difference in the frequency?
There is. The BRT would be 15-minute frequency, and the CAT varies, but I'd say it's mostly 30, 35. There's some points where it's a little less, but.
One of the things that somebody in the commission suggested is that we take a look at the CAT and make it, make that do more than it's doing now. Maybe if it's
the major benefits of the BRT is that it's limited stop, and the CAT really provides that local service, and it's, almost every block or every, 400 to 1,000 feet, and the BRT would just be these limited stations, so that really helps to increase the speed a lot. And the BRT would have that exclusive lane, on the First Avenues, which also would increase the speed, so that is one of the major benefits of that service.
Could you just increase the speed of can you take something that would normally be in a CAT and take somebody that stops away from it and just make basically BRT out of some of them?
That is option number 2, basically. Oh, no, I'm sorry, option number 3 or 2.
The issue with that is, though, that would be detrimental to the tourists who want to basically have a local service where they're going from one restaurant to another or something like that. And if we have a limited access line, even though it's faster, it might not be as beneficial to the tourists.
They could go to the restaurants in lovely St. Petersburg.
They could do that.
On the BRT instead.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, you're right.
You want to mention
Thank
the
you.
thing you told me about
Thank you. Finance Chair. I just wanted to urge my colleagues to really, I think we're doing what is our job to do, to look out for the best financial position for PSTA, but I'd really encourage us to take a step back and look at the big picture. We have been planning this for a very long time. We know it's not realistic that St. Pete Beach or Treasure Island will become ad valorem members of PSTA. There is some greater value to be had by doing this project right and by having a terminus at St. Pete Beach, which seemed to me to be head and shoulders above the other locations, probably mainly because of density and potential greater density with their redevelopment. And I don't think we should, I think we need to be careful about not saying things which they interpret as being backed into a corner or being punished. They're a beach community that has a lot of infrastructure cost. I don't think it's PSTA's position to lecture to another municipality what their millage rate should or shouldn't be. I don't think it's our right to really kind of determine their self-interest. I just would like us to really keep in mind that this could be what I hope to be the first of many successful BRT projects in the region. And that I see this being more successful if the terminus is St. Pete Beach. And while it would be perfect if St. Pete Beach would come to the table with the money that we would like to see them come forward with, I'd really like to see us cooperate and work with them as much as we can and not have this be an example of why we can't get mass transit projects completed in this region. Let's not let this be an example of how we can't meet eye to eye and a good project becomes less of what it could, of its potential. Let's really try to do everything we can to work with St. Pete Beach in a spirit of cooperation. And finally, one thing I'll just add, and I believe it was Councilmember Johnson that may have mentioned this a second ago, but it would be almost, being a representative of the city of St. Pete, it would almost be hypocritical for me to suggest that every city that participates with PSTA somehow has to pay in the full amount of exactly the services we get, because I'm sure St. Pete gets a lot because we're a bigger city and because of different aspects of our demographics. We benefit a lot from PSTA service. I'm sure we don't necessarily, our ad valorem probably doesn't match that exactly. So therefore, I would be hesitant to be the one to suggest that St. Pete Beach has to pay in their full share. And those are my comments.
Yeah, Commissioner Dungy.
if we had it and we ran it and it stopped at 75th, so it would only run, yeah, what would that cost?
Well, that's part of the analysis we're doing right now, so we don't have those numbers today.
So but that would run from, it would be a couple of miles it would be just at 75th and would stop there. It looks like it would be like
Not even
an
a
inch.
mile.
Not even a mile.
Yeah, it's probably a little less than 2 miles in each direction.
So what would-
I mean, total.
So the rest, so.
To the border of St. Pete Beach?
No, there and back, both directions.
Oh.
So what would that be, $50,000 or something?
Yeah, I mean,
Not much.
So if we took it there and then let them say, okay, we'll run it up and down with the cat and with everything else, they would have it. It would be a minor expense.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah, it's just, you lose the benefit of the one-seat ride to the major activity center section of St. Pete Beach. There's pluses and minuses to each of these. And something else related to that Councilmember Rice mentioned how this is part of a bigger system, and we've done a little delving into the ridership, and what we do find is that it actually does not decrease ridership on the CAT. It works with the CAT and works with our other routes, and we actually see increases in ridership on a lot of other routes that touch this corridor, because they then become feeder routes into the BRT, because more people now are able to use this premium service. They have the feeder route, and then they take the premium service quickly down to the beach, to jobs and activities. So that was just, I did want to mention that this is part of a bigger system, and that is our goal, is to grow that ridership system-wide and to be able to implement new projects by having a successful first project.
Joseph?
You said you're looking at the ridership from these options as well, and I think that would be very helpful to know what would the ridership reduction be if it only went to 75th? What would the ridership reduction be if it only went to South Pasadena?
Yeah.
I'm sort of trying to be part of the spirit of cooperation. If I don't think it's reasonable to run the BRT down to the Don Cesar unless they're going to be a participant, because there's a membership, and the rest of the county is a full member, and they're not. But if they just went to 75th, and we didn't lose a whole bunch of riders.
Other comment, yes, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certainly not in favor of St. Pete Beach paying any less than they're currently paying, but I also don't want us to make a decision, a short-sighted decision that prevents us from realizing the full value of the investment. So I think we all want to see the cost projections and ridership projections. This is a big deal. It's been talked about for a really long time. So, it's a little torn on it, but at the same time, I think we have to be conscious to make sure that we're going to see the full value of that investment.
Yes.
I don't know if this applies here, so Heather or Brad jump in, but it kind of reminds me of the concept in retail of a loss leader. Like Home Depot sells bags of mulch and soil and whatnot. It's a loss, but they know that people that come in through the door, they make the money up on other items that people buy when they go into the store, and they use that special to kind of get people through. So, I mean, I kind of look at this as a little bit like maybe St. Pete Beach. The lack of the ad valorem contribution is a loss leader, but we just have to look to make up for it in other areas by having, a world-class BRT service. Now, I know no mass transit actually pays for itself, but, in this instance, sense when it comes to Treasure Island or St. Pete Beach, where they're not going to become ad valorem members. I would love to see what would happen with maybe getting a little bit of money possibly from the hotels or from tourism, bed tax revenues. But, at some point, we're just gonna have to look look at this a little bit like a lost leader model.
Any other? Okay, I concur with that theoretical concept, but those of us who were there, now granted, the people who came up to spoke, the citizens that came up to spoke were staged, so we accept that. But the people who are on the commission were also very negative about this. And my personal feeling is we can drop this thing right at the city line and let them keep running their cat line. I just am reluctant to force something on somebody that doesn't want it, and that's clearly the case.
May I respectfully, I think they needed to vent frustration because they felt backed into a corner. I just think that we need to keep the door open and keep the conversation going, because what I heard is that they were open to the service, but they resisted the notion of, clearly they were chagrined by comments about bringing the fork to the picnic. Clearly they were chagrined by the commission telling them that they had to participate in PSTA if they wanted a CRA.
The county.
The county, I'm sorry. The county, not PSTA. I think they needed to vent a little bit, and I think Commissioner Pletcher was really captured a lot of the nuance as well. I think she described how she knew that the service was important to the economic development of St. Pete Beach, but she's caught in a difficult place because of where her constituents are and how they voted responding to Greenlight Pinellas versus the way they feel treated. So I just think, and I think that by the time, my impression was by the time that the meeting ended, I felt like the door was cracked open to continue conversations. Once we kind of got some of the airing of frustrations out of the way. And I think some of their frustrations were legitimate.
Just to note, this weekend I did get a nice email from the mayor of St. Pete Beach, who talked about trying to talk to the hotels, seeing if they contribute any money. So we'll come back to this. We're going to put it on pause. We're not going to have a vote at the end of this month.
Right. Okay. So we're not voting on anything. It's purely informational at this time. Okay. All right. Yes.
One last thing. If you're looking at bringing this just over to 75th and stopping there, and it costs very little, like $50,000. Then what we're actually to do is go from 75th down to the trade winds, and that's going to cost them another $700,000.
We'll have to get the number. I don't know.
Well, but we told them initially the whole thing was going to cost them $700,000. We told them earlier it was only going to cost them $500,000, and I think when we got in there, they all had $500,000 that they were looking at, and then we came in and said it's going to cost you $714,000, and everybody went, where did it? And the commissioner that we've been dealing with said, I thought it was going to be 500. What happened? And
City manager.
Yeah, state manager. And everybody goes, what's going on? And so this was a basic surprise to them in the first place, saying, wait a minute, what's going on? So what I'm saying is that if you come down to 75th, it costs them practically nothing, and the rest of the way is going to cost them $700,000. I would be very reluctant to go for that myself. That's an awful lot of money for not very much coverage.
Well, but
Look at it.
But wasn't the 700, how far down was that to go?
It was about the trade winds area, and that, it was like about 500 and something thousand for the operating cost, plus some annualized
Right.
costs of some of the capital. So that's why that was a little bit more. But going to 75th and Gulf, we would not propose to charge St. Pete Beach a lot, because it's really not providing any benefit, any great benefit to their city. It's just providing a transfer location to get to another service.
Well,
It's not serving, all of their destinations are in here.
Well, then that goes back to the mayor's proposal that they talked to
Yes.
and they could do a special taxing district for their tourist area, which could cover that incremental cost. And as a potential that would not create the problem for the residents. Which, I mean, I think that would work. I agree with Mark that changing the dollar amount when you walked in the door was a big ouch. As far as.
Well, respectfully, the $700,000, we had one-on-one meetings with several of the commissioners, and the number they had all seen was $700,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we hadn't gotten back to the city manager.
No,
I thought we had gotten back to the city manager, but apparently he decided he made that comment, so I don't know. Maybe he
Yeah,
didn't
I didn't
understand.
see that. That was the first time I'd seen this ever.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just going down to the trade winds, so if anybody wanted to go further south down to Pass Grill, then they would have to jump on the CAT to do that. So that service would still continue, so that would be 700,000 over and above what they're currently paying.
Unless we, did some of those creative, costing concepts.
Right.
You could do the creative costing contest and make it something that the hotels would pay. That might be very interesting. If you could put it off to the hotels like that and say, it's not gonna cost the citizens anything, but it's gonna cost the hotels. I don't know if they could come up with $350,000, but, talking to them, it might make sense.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll keep working to see if we can get
Yeah.
some more input from the city.
Thank you.
It's not my city, it's Mark's city, but I'd like to be involved in conversations further on this.
Thanks to Mark for coming to our transit town hall that we had on Friday at 75th and Gulf. Commissioner Dighton, myself, and our PSA millennials were there talking to riders. I think Mark talked to a maybe not totally lucid
Never
man the
mind.
entire time, but there were a lot of workers that were coming wearing hotel uniforms that were coming up there. That's the place where you can transfer to the Suncoast Beach trolley that goes up Gulf Boulevard north to Clearwater. And I mean, it looked like there was like 50-50, or a lot of riders that were transferring there to go to St. Petersburg, and then also to go north to all the way up.
The one good person I spoke to was saying, I'd like the service to run longer. And she was bright and knew what was going on. I just need more time.
Yeah.
More in the evening.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Heather. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, let's get back on track here. All right, so we have monthly financial goodies.
Thank you, Chair. We're reviewing the month of August, the 11th month in our fiscal year. And in August, we had a $3.7 million deficit, which was $41,000 unfavorable to budget, or favorable to budget. And again, we saw passenger fares were down, contributing to the $133,000 that revenues were below budget, but we also saw that expenses were $174,000 below budget. If we take a look at the next page, on this, which is the year-to-date, we have a $6.1 million surplus, or $6.6 million surplus as compared to the $6.1 million budget, $508,000 favorable. If you recall, that includes about a $2.8 million transfer into our reserves. As we look at the preliminary numbers for September, since we're so close to the end of the year, I would anticipate that this would be around $400,000 positive variance to budget for the whole fiscal year. Notwithstanding, we have actuarial reports that have to come in that may make adjustments that are non-cash based. So we will meet our goal for this fiscal year, being financially responsible and moving forward from there. Are there any questions specifically on the financial statements?
Any questions? Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So will that entire $6.6 million be transferred to reserves at the end of the fiscal year? I think you said it was $2.8 million is currently been transferred.
We actually, if you just go back to the month for August, you see we had budgeted about $3.7 million deficit. We have deficits in the last half of the year. So you'll be seeing a similar amount of deficit for September that's budgeted, which will bring us down to about $3.1 million surplus.
So that's 6.6.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank
And
you.
then that will go to surplus.
Yes, it will. It'll go to buses.
Any questions?
Yeah, I don't, in the revenues, we have, non-transportation revenue is 107.2% over budget. Is that, are you doing anything out of the ordinary, or is it?
That I contribute to Michael and his investment abilities there to increase what our interest income has been.
And how are we doing for interest? What kind of a percentage are we getting?
Horribly low, but we're
Yeah,
excited
I think
about
we're
it.
getting 60 basis points now on our money market account with Bank United.
I was wondering if it were much greater than that, because that's fine, thank you. Because
Mr. Johnson?
You're looking at September as having $400,000 favorable to budget, and our budget.
For the fiscal year to
For the
date.
fiscal year to date.
$100,000 deficit anticipated for the month of September.
How much?
$100,000 unfavorable
Got it,
variance.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the total return budgeted and the 400K would be 3.1, is that what you're saying?
3.2, we've got it, looks like we have about a $3 million surplus early on here in September compared to our budget of the 2.6 million, 2.7 million. So we'll be meeting our budget goal for this year and exceeding.
Budget goal for this year was how much?
It was $2.6 million.
Thank you. And of the revenue, how much of the revenue deficit, 2.4 is associated with TD, it was 140?
It was 140.3.
So we're still substantially under our passenger fares. Do we know, is how much of that was related to the earlier thing where we allowed people to buy monthly passes instead of,
Talking about the blue card, the county blue card program?
well, the blue card program is 140K, right?
That we were guesstimating at that time.
We're estimating, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there were probably, that's based on what we were seeing in the TD revenues, if I recall. But I think a lot of people have shifted when we look at how many people were buying monthly passes previously to now. That's gone down. Daily has gone down.
I'm just trying to get at
But
the revenue budget versus how much of it was usage, how much of it was shifting from less opportunity from a cash fare to a monthly fare, because we made it a lot easier to buy passes and all that other stuff. Our customers were benefiting, but if we look at next year, what would we be, if we had perfect hindsight, what would we have budgeted our revenue to have been? Would it?
Probably a little less than what we budgeted.
Oh, you're talking
For
about
next
fiscal
year.
year 17?
Yeah.
Probably, it's probably somewhat less.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All right, so do you have a best estimate on where we're gonna end up for the fiscal year?
I think around $3 million surplus.
Okay. And we're already taking into account the current trends for next year?
Yes.
It looks like we're still down a little bit on ridership.
Yes.
We are, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, the next thing is actually the ridership and performance information as well.
Which that you have at your places?
Yes, we do.
That is basically for the entire fiscal year, down I think 10% for the year, which,
Yeah, we're down about 9.5, it looks like.
yeah.
Now, do we have any idea what's causing that, and if it's going to continue?
Yes, specifically on there is, as you can see in some of the detail, there was a substantial decrease, much more than the overall 9 or 10, with the Clearwater Marine Aquarium Jolly Trolley service was down, I don't have the sheet in front of me, like 20-some%. And then Yellow Cab, our paratransit provider, our former paratransit provider, that service, you can see, is down, was down also substantially for the year. Those are two factors. But overall, ridership was definitely down. I just got back from our benchmarking group with the 20 other transit systems, and 10% is pretty much par for the course with many of those, with most of those systems.
Nobody has any idea? I mean, are people buying cars that were previously bus drivers, or are they just not?
The general consensus was, yes, the economy is improving, gas prices have remained very low. That is, more people are buying cars. A lot of discussion of whether these ride-sharing programs like Uber and Lyft are eating into transit ridership. Perhaps there's I think some belief that maybe in lower density areas like northern Pinellas that certainly is probably happening some, but I don't know if it's happening an enormous amount. That's an effect, but.
Okay, well, what I'm getting at is we need to figure out how we're going to do in 2017.
Exactly. The good news is that for the last several months, the average revenue per customer has been going up. So the fare increase that we implemented a year ago is starting to take effect. We're getting more money, we're talking pennies, more money per customer that rides the bus, even though overall ridership is down. We're getting a greater return on the customers that are riding. Now,
So most are not full fare, most are riding with some.
correct. The average revenue per customer is still right around $1, even though our price is $2.25. That's because people are getting discounts. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, contracts.
That's a quarterly report we provide to you that shows all of our different contracts. It's in your folder.
Okay. All right, any other business? All right, for once, we're a little early.
Yeah.
Good.
Good
All right,
job.
so we'll adjourn at this, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Just outside of the meeting, if you've adjourned the meeting, simple question to the members of the city, from the cities. Do any of your cities have annual objectives for your city manager?
In terms of specifics,
A
areas.
specific area?
Sure, that's in their,
Very
their annual review and every other technique. You know, we don't have a city manager, we have a city clerk. We're a small city, but yes, we do have that. It's built into their performance review for what they're supposed to be focusing on during the course of the year, yes.
We have city clerk too, and it's not, we don't have a real performance measure that she's supposed to do this and do that. She apparently does it very well by herself.
Yeah, well, we all keep track of the important things that have to happen every day, but to try to, objective to do something special by a certain date is what I'm looking at. Does St. Pete do that?
I'm sorry?
Does St. Pete have objectives, or does the mayor have objectives that he looks at of this year to do something?
We have like a strong mayor type
Right.
government, so.
We have quarterly goal sessions as a council that's somewhat coordinated with the mayor's office, but we don't have the city manager form of government where the council reviews the city manager.
Yeah, I'm just, I went to a Florida.
Sometimes I wish we did.
I went to a Florida League of Cities emo program.
Sure.
And they recommended that as a best practice to pick a few things, just like we do here at PSTA, that we're going to review our CEO on the accomplishment of these things at the end of this fiscal year. And so I'm looking, well, do cities do that?
Sure.
Maybe we're just, but.
You're welcome to all keep this meeting going till 3 o'clock this afternoon or 2:30, because we are having a pre-proposal conference in this room with consultants. I'm sure will be here to develop a more robust performance scorecard system for the whole organization.
Really?
That's also tied to, that will feed up to my review and see a whole thing.
Cool.
See you there. And
Thank you,
can-
Mr. Chairman, for
Sure.
the ability to just
All right, well,
interact.
The chair of the planning
Yeah.
committee
Is
Mike.
Mr. Knight.
I'll get out of my seat and you can jump over here. Right.
Yes, I did. I put that note in, and, did not really-
Did you see this?
Well, thanks, yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. And I had to, I
It is
do, and I had to
not
turn up the heat.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
thank
good,
you.
it has.